Hey everybody, it's Dina Rico with the Creativity Cave. I have a really awesome project for you today. This is for, oh my gosh, can you wait for it? Friday Quickie techniques and tips. Oh my gosh, we haven't had one of these in forever. I've had a lot of requests for no line watercoloring, and I did do it in a Facebook Live recently, but I wanted to just take a little more time and do another project to share with you in case you didn't catch my Facebook Live. So I'll put the link to that Facebook Live in the description of my video because it's the first card I did in that Facebook Live. So you can check it out in the description of the video. So I'm going to use Stampin' Up's Harvest Hellos stamp set. Now, if you've never done no line watercoloring, I definitely recommend that you use a really simple image to start with. So I'm going to use the apple from this stamp set. I'll also use the stem and leaf images, and of course a sentiment as well. But this is a really great image to start with because it's pretty easy to stamp with. All right, now I'm going to start by, I've got a bunch of actually open ink pads here. And then I'm going to bring in a scrap piece of watercolor. And I also have some paper to protect my work surface. Now, the first thing that I want to do when I watercolor with no line watercoloring is that I'm going to take and stamp my image with a light color of ink. So I'm going to use our Sahara Sand ink, and I'm actually going to stamp off a layer of that ink on my scrap paper, and then I will stamp that on here like so. So I get a pretty light image, and it's a nice neutral color, so it will really blend in as I do my coloring. I'm going to use my aqua painter. And of course, all of the supplies that I'm using today, you can purchase in my online store. And I would love your support. All of the links, by the way, are in the description of the video, as well as a link to my blog post that has photos and all the dimensions and everything written down, as well as links for all these products. Okay, so I'm going to start with my apple, and I'm going to use several colors. I've got Crushed Curry, Cajun Craze, Real Red, Old Olive. So to start with, I'm going to pick up some Crushed Curry ink, and I'm just going to kind of go around and add some Crushed Curry along the edge of my apple here. And then I'm going to do a little bit of Old Olive. Now, I like to use a little rag. It's easier to clean your brush off that way. And I'm just going to put a little bit of, and actually I want this to be kind of light. I'm going to put a little bit of green in here of my Old Olive. Okay, and you can see the water just kind of helps blend those colors together. Now on the other side, I want it to be red, so I'm actually going to kind of turn it upside down. I'm going to pick up some red ink, and I'm going to go along that edge carefully with my red ink, and you can see the line of the stamp is disappearing as I'm coloring in, which is exactly what I want because that's kind of the whole thing with no line watercoloring. And then I'm just going to kind of even out, or actually lighten up this color. We're going to add more in a little bit, so don't worry. But I'm just kind of lightening this up so I can kind of blend all of this together a little bit. Now, every time you do this, you're going to get a little bit different look. So actually, I'm going to pull my apple back out so you can sort of see what it looks like. So I'm doing this side right now. And then I'm just going to come in and continue to add a little bit of color in here. And then I'm going to add more richer color on the edge here. And then it just kind of blends in, which is what I'm going for. Okay, I'm also going to add a little bit of water to this because it's starting to dry out, partly because I'm chit-chatting with you. So I'm just adding some clean water in here, and then I will kind of blend those two sides together with some Cajun Craze ink. So you can see that works pretty well. I add just a little bit more green over here, and then kind of in the middle, everything sort of blends together and feathers in, which is perfect. All right, now I'm going to add a little more Crushed Curry out on the edge here. Okay. Really making sure I'm going right up to that line, and that looks good. And then we'll just kind of fill that in, and that looks all right. Now I want there to be a little bit of red on this side too. So I'm going to pick up some more red ink and just kind of draw in a little line. Here, this will blend in some red so my apple looks kind of normal like an apple. All right. And then what I want to do next is really let this kind of dry a little bit. So that I can add in some of the detail. So on our image, we've got these kind of shading lines, and I want to add those back into my apple, but in order for them to show up and not just feather out, I need it to be dry. So I'm just going to heat this up a little bit with my heat gun to dry it up. Looks good. And then I'm going to come back in with some red ink, and I want it to be nice and dark. And I'm just drawing that line back in like so. That looks pretty good. And then I'm actually going to do the same thing over here. Again, I'm going to use red. So I've got a little line down here. I can see that's not quite dry because it's feathering a bit, but that's all right. Okay, I'm going to heat it once more to dry it up. And now, when I draw that line in, it should be nice and solid. Right over the top, yep. So it's okay. All right, so remember, it's gonna look a little different every time you do this. Now, I'm just gonna bring my apple in to show you a little different, but pretty good. All right, now this is dry. I do want to show you something. When I punched this, do you see this line right here? It scraped on my punch. There's like the little line right there when I was pushing it in, and that was because it was still wet. So punch when it's really dry. That way you won't do that like I did. Okay, so there we go. Now I also need the two other pieces. So I'm going to stamp those separately here. I'm going to use my hair sand again. I need my stem stamped off. I'm just going to do that up there. And then I also need my leaf stamped off. Actually, you might laugh at this a little bit. The image I had the most trouble with was the leaf, which is kind of funny because it's really not that complicated of an image, but I did struggle with it a little. All right, I'm going to start with my stem because that's real easy. Taking some early espresso ink, and there's not a lot of shading that you really end up with on the stem because it's not that big, but I'm just going to color that in, and then we'll punch that out here in a second. So there's my stem. Like I said, it's not that exciting. And then we're going to do our leaf. Now for the leaf, I kind of went a little bit with the opposite. Well, sort of the opposite. I'm going to start with those detail lines first. So I'm going to draw 2 stripes on either side here. And I want them to be kind of nice like that. And then I'll do the vein kind of going down the center. Now on your aqua painter, you want to make sure that it's not too wet. Sometimes your aqua painter will have water really flowing through, and when you're trying to do real detailed lines like this and it's wet, that makes it complicated. I'll then take and draw in the outline like so. I'm going to get rid of the excess, pick up a little lighter shade, and then I'm just going to fill this in a little bit. I'm being a little careful, excuse me, to make sure that I'm not going to lose all that detail. And because my brush is a little bit wet, that is sort of what's happening. But that's okay. We'll add it back in. But for that to be most effective, we're going to heat it up a little bit. When you're wanting to add detail and you want a crisp line, it really is important that what you're working with is dry. Otherwise, it just feathers right back out. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but that's okay. It's a little tiny detail on this, by the way, so it's not critical either. All right, I'm going to punch the rest of this, the pieces out, and then we're going to assemble our card. It's really easy to do, so I'm just going to punch that stem right here, and then I'm going to do that leaf right there. Okay, and then let's put all those pieces and parts together. I'm going to create a little background quick. Close a couple of these ink pads up. Now I created a little background on my watercolor panel. I'm going to start with a 1 5/8 by 4 7/8 inch piece of watercolor paper, and I'm going to draw the floor, in essence, with just a little bit of old olive right on my watercolor paper, and you can make it as dark as you want. All right, then I'm going to take some Pool Party ink, and I'm going to do kind of a background for the sky, if you will. I don't know, I guess for our apple to just sit out. And I'm just making a real subtle background. It's not too fancy. I'm not trying to get like all kinds of color on here. I just want a little background so that my apple is not just floating in free air on here. Okay, notice I'm going real close to that edge, but not quite. There we go. Okay, because I don't want the feathering between the two colors, but that looks pretty good. It's very simple, nothing fancy. I'm going to heat it real quick to dry it out so that when I adhere everything, it will stick. And you can see this is a real subtle background. There's not much going on here, but it's better than just placing our apple on a white background. All right, now I'm going to pop up my apple onto my card, and I'll use a couple of dimensionals for this. Then I'm also going to add that stem with a glue dot. Okay, which reminds me, where did my stem go? I found my stem stuck to my sleeve earlier. That's just kind of what happens. Okay, so I'm going to put the stem on the tip of a glue dot and then place that right behind my apple. And then we're going to pop the apple, like I said, right up onto our card. So cute. I love this apple. I think this would be a great card for a teacher, like as a thank you. Or I'm doing it as a feel better soon card. So, an apple a day keeps the doctor away kind of a thing, Okay, I'm also going to take and stamp my sentiment on a little scrap that I've got of watercolor paper. This was just left over from trimming cardstock. And it says feel better soon. So I'm just going to stamp that right there. I'll take my triple banner punch and just punch the end of that to give me that cute little banner end. And then I'm going to pop this up onto my card. And I want to trim this. So I'm just going to kind of line it up with my card, flip it over, and use the edge to trim. And as soon as I find my scissors. Okay, these will work. Okay. And of course I smeared that, but here's a good way to solve that problem. I can take watercolor paper is pretty forgiving. So I'm actually going to take my paintbrush with clear water and just kind of get rid of that little smudge. And now it's not too bad. All right. Now I'll pop this up onto my card as well. And I'm going to add a little embellishment with it, which is going to be in the form of a bow. So I'll just stick that on, and it's sticking out just a little bit. My bow is going to be some braided linen thread. I'll just tie a little bow with this, like so. And trim the ends. And I kind of like to fray them a little bit. I'll glue dot that on, and then we'll layer it up with my other layers of cardstock. So I hope you loved this card and that you will give it a try. No line watercoloring is so fun. It's pretty easy to do. And the results are they make you look fancy, I think. It's like you freehand colored this, not stamped it and colored it. So I love that look. Oh, I got to add my leaf as well. All right. So I'll just adhere this to my crumb cake card base. So we've got a just wonderful card. So this is 3 3/4 by 5 real red, and then our half sheet of crumb cake cardstock. I'm going to kind of wiggle my leaf just so that it has a little dimension, and then I'll glue dot this to the front. Oops. Like so. There we go. Thanks, guys, for stamping with me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel right here. And if you have any questions or would like to place an order, please go to my website and you can get all the details as well as links to my online store. Thanks, guys. Oh, one more thing. Gosh, I have an online class coming up with this stamp set. The Harvest Hellos Creativity to Go kit is my September Creativity to Go class. So make sure you check that out. I didn't really like this set, to be honest, when it first came out. I have so fallen in love. There are so many great things that you can do. We're going to make cards that are all season. There's one Halloween card, but you can switch it up to other stuff. And there's just some really great cards. I was surprised as to how much I really loved this set. So thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.